Gill, AUEW TAS, moving motion 13. Since 1945, we've had freezes, pauses, norms, stages, phases, planned growth of incomes. Every one of them has been a euphemism for cutting living standards. In an epoch of inflation, and that's what we live in, wage control is always wage cutting, and life doesn't change very much, does it? Sir Geoffrey Howe, the present Chancellor, crowns his disastrous economic policy with a demand that what we need is another 2 or 3 years of wage settlements, and I quote, significantly below the rate of inflation. When does a government introduce an incomes policy to actually improve the standard of living of the workers of this country? The Tories, although they claimed they didn't, they have an incomes policy, and everyone knows what it is, and it's based on fear of the sack. After all these experiences, it is a pity that it's necessary to put on the agenda of conference opposition to wages restraint. And it's there because the last 35 years of history appear to have taught some people nothing at all. Hesitations still exist in the highest places, and I'm sure some of you may have noticed. Trade unions, brothers and sisters, exist to defend and improve the standard of living of their members. They've no other function, and if they cease to perform that function, then the members will vote with their feet. No one joins a trade union so that union leaders can come to some agreement with anyone to lower the standard of living now for some future pie in the sky. We repeat the very simple proposition that wage levels are not the main or a major cause of inflation. They're certainly not the cause of unemployment. The location of the deserts in many of the parts of industrial Britain is testimony to that. Take the textiles, take steel. In steel, there was constant cooperation between the unions and management. Result, a very small wage offer and massive unemployment. Were wage increases in the BSC responsible? Of course not. Textiles have always been lowly paid, and British Leyland workers have had their wages cut consistently for years, and sacking continues. A recent Financial Times survey of reasons for redundancies said, and remember this was a survey of employers, in 54% of the cases, the reason was lack of orders. Inflation was responsible for 4% of the cases, and high wages and restrictive practices, the magnificent figure of 0.1%. Britain, home of practical trade unionism, cannot accept the economics of the madhouse. Every person on the unemployed register is costing the nation $12,000 a year in benefits and lost production. The Chancellor of the Exchequer orders further cuts in public expenditure in order to reduce the public sector borrowing requirement, but then pays £12,000 per week for every victim. $12,000 a year for every victim. We say, let people work and be paid well to work rather than being paid very badly to produce nothing at all, because unemployment is by definition inflationary, because it is consuming without producing. So increased consumption is essential to the regeneration of the British economy. Wage restraint does precisely the opposite. To paraphrase Harold Wilson, who nearly always got everything wrong, one man's place, wage cut is another man's place in the dole queue. Those who differentiate between Tory and Labour are both right and wrong in this question. Right, because a civilised socialist society advances equality, as the General Secretary was saying, by a growing social wage, making money wages less and less important. If the highest point that we've ever reached of a social wage, 40% of the average industrial worker's income, became 90% by the provision, say, of free travel, free food, free homes, as well as health, education and pensions, then that remainder could be a legitimate matter for discussion. But until a massive shift of wealth and power takes place, it's wrong, appallingly wrong, to give away the right to bargain, the right to extract the best bargain from the employers. Those people who face employers, particularly in the private section, from week to week, know that they don't give it away very readily. You can't have a free market for everyone but the worker, who, after all, sells his only product, and that's work. And I say to Congress that until our national resources are conscripted for the people, wages cannot be put in uniform. Unless we lift demand, and that means wages, our youngsters, if they ever get a real job instead of one of Pryor's ersatz jobs, will not be able to buy British goods at all, any more than they can buy a British motorbike today. Whole industries will have died, and resurrection is not a common economic phenomenon. We in the trade unions always have to discuss with government our view of economic life, but we should not strike bargains over